what's up? Welcome to the Stat Guy Show, episode number 57. Joining me tonight is a small tire and Street Outlaws veteran, Mr. Chris Rankin. How you doing, man?
Hey, buddy, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just enjoying this really cold ass weather. How's the weather over there on the East Coast?
Nice and cold. It's going to be like in maybe the single digits tonight, which I know a lot of other people in the country have already had that in sub-zero, but we're going to be cold. Too cold for me, man.
Yeah, no, I know. I was last year in Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin every year. It's been getting like a little warmer, seemed like. And last year we didn't experience any cold weather, and this year we've been in the negatives now for a few days, and it's. I remember as a kid, but I don't like it. I don't really like it at all. But
I don't know how you guys do it, honestly. Like when I think what I got to deal with in the Northeast for weather is being bad, and you guys out in the Midwest and further Northwest is just miserable. I want to be a snowbird one day when the time's right. My kid gets older. I definitely plan on moving south. Amy and I definitely plan on doing this other thing, man. This weather up here is unbearable.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. So what's going on, man? What are you doing? Are you glad to be off the No Prep Kings grind finally?
Man, I'm sitting home. I'm watching movies. I'm getting fat. I'm doing all the things that I don't want to do in the off season because I'm not racing, staying busy. I miss it, man. Like I really enjoyed the season. It was a really tough season for me starting out, and a big learning lesson. And a lot of hard lessons learned, but I loved it, man. I learned a lot of stuff this year that I never would have learned small tire racing or just doing the kind of big tire racing I did in the OG Relic. So, I'm enjoying the decompression time, but I'm kind of over it, man. I'm actually getting ready to do I started my diet today, actually. I need to do my driver mod. I figured I'm hoping hope the turbo guys get some weight breaks this year or something cool. Or maybe get a 36 and maybe lock up and we don't have to weigh anymore so I can be lighter. So I figured it'd be cheaper for me to lose 30 pounds than have to make the car lose 30 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny you bring that up. I had Nate Saylor on my show last week, and he had lost like 30 some pounds during the season. To get
he's already little and skinny. God. He's probably 130 pounds soaking wet. I wish I could be 190 pounds. Probably where he's at.
Yeah. So what's the status of your MPK car right now? What's going on with that?
So it's sitting on a lift in the shop. It's getting a couple of upgrades. It's going to be actually going to HFR fabrication here when the motor comes back from Billy Briggs Racing Engines. We got the motor being freshened. Of course, we got our B motor being freshened because it actually was already fresh, but we're making some changes because it wasn't exactly what I had. It was just going to be a backup motor at the time, and now I'm actually making it an exact clone. Regardless of it not being the Hemi that everybody would prefer me to be in, it's what I can afford right now. It's what I got. It's what I'm used to. It's what I've learned. I got a good handle on it now, so it's ready to go. For the most part, Turbo Smart just did some changes on the wastegates. I'm going to stick with the CO2 style wastegate as much as a lot of the guys went E-gate on the turbo deal. I only because I run Holly, and I hear there's some difficulties with operating them as well with the Holly than the Fuel Tech. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that because I haven't dove into that, too far to be honest. But I made a couple other changes. Comp Turbo came out with a really badass new turbo. It's a hubless design, and they made some other changes for me specifically for my turbo and my request based on my tuner, Greg Power at GP Tuning. So we got some good things coming that'll make the car faster. Got some transmission changes and gearing and converter and fluid and different stuff. I actually texted Ryan Martin this morning about getting some fluid, so I got to get a message over to him to get that sent my way. I buy my fluid through those guys. They use that lat. That fluid has been really good for our program. So that was another hard lesson learned for me this season. Just figuring out what fluids are run and how often to service them. So
yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, this is the time of the year where everybody, the screw blower guys are talking about going pro charger and vice versa, and you're talking about turbos and obviously sticking with the turbos. What is it because you know it so well? Because as you know, like there was only how many? I think there was like 9 guys total who ran like turbos last year, either a single or twin turbos. And it was probably the most down year for the whole turbo class, I would say, since No Prep King started. What is it about you staying with turbos that you have, confidence in it for this upcoming season?
So I can tell you that I've definitely learned, hands down, guys advised me when I was on the team early in the season to move the screw blower or move the Pro Charger, and others. And I've seen at this level now the level of consistency that needs to be had on the tree and leaving on the tree, and how important it is to go fast up front. If you can go, 9:30 short, you're going to be a lot faster in the beginning of the racetrack than you are obviously going to be at the end. And that's really important in this game. So I do know if I could afford to, that making a change or building a whole nother car that would be a Pro Charger screw blower would make sense, so I could go faster up front. And I know the tuning side of it's a lot easier. There's a lot less going on, a lot less mechanical parts in those, those combos. But those combos also can have some failures. The Pro Charger can have some failures. The screw blowers can have some issues. So there's some downfalls. Obviously, the Zoomies really help too up front. But, the tracks have gotten better, in my opinion, from what I've seen and heard in the past and from what I've experienced this year. So, and I feel like that's probably going to stay the same or even get better, which is going to allow us to even go faster. Turbo cars make more horsepower. They have more moving parts. They have to bump in. They have to do all that. All those things can change how your race even starts before it starts, because if you bump in deep, if you don't bump, I've had some problems this year where I've had to struggle with chasing some of those issues with converter swaps and stator changes in my converter and fluid changes. So, that makes your consistency more difficult, but turbos make more power. So if you can run a little better up front than you have last year, which my plan is this year to run a little better up front, I'm going to backsplit even better than I did last year. And that's important for me because I feel like if the surfaces are going to be better, potentially, or as good, that I feel like in most of the tracks, I'll be able to go a lot faster than I did next year. I mean, to be honest with you, if I would have started off this season like I ended, I would have, when everybody else was figuring out their programs again this season and figuring out their new combos, I would have been in the same spot. I would have been in a better spot than I'm at now. I finished 32nd. I think I finished like second turbo guy down from Lutz. I think I had a really competitive car compared to Lutz. When I actually had a good race where my car didn't have a failure or I'd have something going on wrong, him and I ran pretty close. So we actually did a grudge race down there in Steele, Alabama. He treated the hell out of me, got out of me about a car, and I think he finished I had a little less than half a car in front of me. So that was positive for me, learning that and seeing that I have a competitive car in that nature. And honestly, I mean, he has an old setup too. He's got a conventional big block cast deal. I have an older 41X. They show that obviously can still be competitive. But I want to say turbo. I know it, I'm true to it. My first car with that Starion when I was 15 years old, it was turbo. I did do some nitrous and blower stuff throughout the years, but on street cars, CTSV Cadillacs and Mustangs, nothing crazy, nothing this kind of caliber race car.
Right.
I would like to learn it though. I would definitely like to look at tune-ups and pay more attention to how they're operating their launch controls on those cars, see what they're using and where they're using it. I'm not saying that I might not build a car, have one of those one day, but I know all the turbo stuff now. I love Comp. They treat me great. I have a great product. It runs and performs very, very well. Being that they stand alone in their product because they have a grease style oilless turbo versus there's no other company out there that has that product in the turbo world. So it showed that it performed very well. I ET'd really well this year. A mile an hour, incredible. So I love the setup, man. I struggled just figuring everything out. I mean, there was no blueprint for me in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Now, did you run twin 98s this year?
So I started out with 88s, then I went to 98s. when I went to the 98s, I actually started finding limitations to my motor because I started making more boost. Yeah, and that's when I started really break. I've had some motor failures early in the season, like at Hebron, Ohio, for example. Our first race out, we had a failure due to an injector driver not being plugged in all the way. But that was and that would go figure that started the race off terrible for me because I missed the first, invitational race. But man, it being a turbo deal though, like I lost my train of thought there for a second, but thinking back on how sad it was in Everett, Ohio. But at any rate, man, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So with what I've noticed, especially with Pro Chargers, year after year, they like update the technology, and you can always like rely on them to just update and get with the times. What you mentioned, Comp Turbo doing new stuff. What if that kind of stuff year after year, and is that another reason why you're sticking with turbos, because they keep updating their stuff?
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, like anything, you got to keep up with the times. I only hear about what Pro Charger's doing with their combinations with their compressor wheels, and I mean, obviously, they're smart. They want to be ahead of the times. Comp is too. Joe's the owner there, and he is very fluent in the turbo world. He's very experienced. He's been in it, I think, pretty much most of his adult career with working. So he's got a lot of familiarity and a lot of knowledge. They just want to be top of the food chain, man. So they're always developing, you know what I mean, research and developing and coming up with new stuff. I baited some stuff for them. I actually baited and tested the hubless for them during our off season. Well, in between was it Epping and Tulsa. I tested them in the OG car, and they were incredible result. And a couple other guys tested them. Brandon Moore tested them. A few others tested them, and we all had great result. And they made some other changes for mine that, per my request and my tuner's request, that they're going to probably be developing some new stuff even more in the future. They've got some really cool stuff coming up that they're working on now, which is really great because, with evolution and technology and standalones, we all want data and more data. So the more data they can give off the turbo, the better we are, to make sure the turbo is healthy and safe and operating in a safe range. So I hear a lot of problems with guys breaking turbos and these E-gate deals because of overspinning them. And what they're working on now will pretty much eliminate that problem when a lot of the E-gates become more prevalent with their product. Yeah. But the hubless design, I'm nervous, to be quite honest with you, with using it with the new car. Now, Billy Briggs is doing some new stuff with our motor to make the head gasket or the sealing surface between the head and the block a little stronger, because mine was a little outdated. And like I said, I found its threshold, and some of it was my fault. First time it wasn't my fault. Second time it was a little more boost in Maple Grove, and I took it out. I took the motor out just because I just wanted to go faster, and I pushed it and broke it. Ruined it. It was terrible because I think that might have been the last weekend that I might have had a chance of shining for Kai's team, and banged that up. So disappointing as it was, but I'm going to continue to work with them on developing, and I'm going to be apprehensive on how much boost I run, especially with this new hubless. I'm gonna slowly pick at it, baby steps, because I know they can make a lot of boost, a lot of power, and I don't want to overdo it early season this year.
Yeah,
I'm hoping I can go out there and step on next with not moving my combo too crazy. And some guys are going to have some new combos, and they're going to be getting a handle on it. If they have the right people in their corner, like Kai did this year, you're going to figure it out fast anyway. Like Kai, he's incredible, man. He blew it out of the ballpark this season, that car early, and it's amazing, honestly.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. With your combination, do you think the rules set as far as they were last year are correct for what you would need to compete at the top as far as turbos go?
So you can't really go by like what all these real fast guys are doing. Todd Moyer and Mark Mickey, they're pro mods, 2,700 pound lockup. Their combination with their weight is more feasible to go fast. My combination 28 at a lockup. I want to run lockup. I got to be 28, 25 as of now. One of 34.5, where they're running a 36. So they're obviously getting it in better up front, and they're getting it in better to 330 and to the stripe, where I'm not able to do that on a 34.5. So I feel like what has to happen really for turbo guys to be competitive is it's the truth. I mean, I do feel like probably a lot of other guys, we need something. You know, I feel like turbo guys need 36 in the lockup at no weight penalty. I can be my 27, 25 in order for me to be competitive with those guys or be able to go toe to toe. I mean, I'll give you an example, not to throw numbers out there and be with one of those guys, but I mean, it's all comes down to numbers. And I'm a big power manager from small tire to big tire. I love power managing. I live and breathe it. I soak it in. I'm a sponge with it. And when it comes to numbers, like in order for us to go as fast to the 330 as these pro chargers and screw blower guys are, if there's any truth to them going 246 to 248 to 330 and going 91, 93, 60 foot, well, there's no turbocharged car out there doing that in no prep kings. I know that I can tell you that I haven't been that fast in the 60 foot, nowhere near. And I need to be able to go that fast in the short. And if I can't, then I got to make it up on the back end. In order for me to go 370s, if that's the number that would be, let's say, the fast number next year, low 370s, then I need to go 115, 116 backsplit, and I need to be able to do 210 mile an hour or better. In order for me to do that, I can't do that with a non-lockup deal of this weight. There's just no way. I mean, I'm gonna place better next year, and I'm gonna do better. I might win some here, win some there. If somebody goes out like Ryan or one of the real fast guys, or Kai or Damon, they break. God forbid something else bad happens, and those positions become available because the stars align, and I can get the good draw and make it far. I might be able to win one, but I know that it's not going to be able to be just won easily. It's going to have a lot of luck and a lot of things aligning for it to happen, unless honestly, if we get a bigger tire, let's say a weight break, and let's say lockup, which I think is usable in this arena now. Again, in the turbo world, other than just nitrous, because I know nitrous guys use lockup. I feel like we could go toe to toe, and then it's gonna be a lot more driver. It's gonna take a lot of driver to not make any mistakes, killing the tree, and obviously having everything else perfect in your car from taking the stage to the stripe. There's no mistakes.
Right.
That's where I'm at with that, man. I really feel like we need something. And I know the screwblower guys probably feel the same. Now they got 98% overdrive, so they're going to be they're going to have more mile an hour from 330 on with that capability, And there's some guys out there that are really fast. Like Jim Howell's he's a gangster with that setup. He knows it really well. Kai and them and Jeff Pierce and Adam, those guys working on that car, like they know that combo really well. There's quite a few others that have their combo really, really figured out too. And then obviously you got your pro charger guys that got their stuff, Clay figured out, Damon. That's but again, that's a blueprinted deal. Like, if you got Proline, which everybody knows is gangster out there, they're one of the best in the business when it comes to, Pro Boost and NPK and a lot of other things. They really know their shit. And if you got them tuners, you got those, those transmissions and those converter combos and their motor combos and their tunes and their setups and, their language and their blueprint, you're going to go fast every time, unless you have a part failure, which can happen. Unfortunately, my money doesn't bring me to that and give me that capability. My stubbornness and loyalty doesn't allow me to jump and switch gears to just go to that, which I've been told earlier this year to go to this and go to that. And I just didn't want to make that change because I just felt like loyalty's big with me, man. And I didn't want to burn bridges and hurt feelings. And I'm going to do my best to not make excuses and just use my combo the best that I can and get it figured out. And to tell you the truth, in the early season, I had so many dumb problems figuring out what I needed to do, and what fluids you use, when to service them, from the rear to the transmission to the engine. If I would have knew a lot of these little things going into the season, my God, things would have been so much easier for me. It would have happened so much earlier, learning like the rockers. I have some aluminum rockers on my motor, which are about to Crisco steel. And it's like, man, trying to find parts was tough. And then to try and happen in the middle of the year and make a change, spend the extra money when you're spending for fuel and spending for this, spending for that. There wasn't a lot of extra money to go around. So I won with the aluminum rockers, but then I learned how the aluminum rockers start to show where they start giving away so I can catch them before they break, and service spark plug wires. Greg Power, man, he's my tuner. And I'm telling you, he helps me, and I bring him out whenever I have problems. He does all my fuel tuning. I'm not a tuner. I'm a power manager. So some guys say they tune. Well, I don't tune. I power manage. He handles all the tuning. If there's crazy tables that need to be made, if I come up with a table and say, hey, I got an idea, he'll make it happen. And I got some pretty wild ideas sometimes. Like I used actually out at MIR for World Cup. But just to play safeties on the car. And, it's important to me to obviously have a tuner like that, out there on my behalf, because I need to have somebody, doing it and helping me. But, the tuning side of it, I don't handle. I let him, and it's just an important part of the game. And he liked me to do some things differently sometimes than I would want to do. But I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to that, and I stick to what I know. So
right, yeah, no, and there's nothing wrong with that, Chris, for sure. And speaking, especially, you can use like Lutz as a perfect example. Now, Lutz had probably his most down year he's had, but he's never switched. Like, everybody has been switching combinations. Lutz has been turbos since the first season of No Prep Kings. You know what I mean? So obviously, it's something to say for having your loyalty and sticking with what you know. And obviously, like you said, it wasn't so much your combination probably at the beginning, was you learning everything that went into maintenance. I remember talking to you at one of the races. You said the biggest thing is realizing or finding out how much you had to maintenance everything and how often you got to do things compared to like racing on the street.
Well, everything Greg would say would be right. And me and Adam Frock's my crew chief, and he's killed it this year. It was his first season, and he never raced or even crewed with a kind of car like this. His first year actually crewing with me, first time ever crewing with me, was in Meg Cassidy on a small tire. But anything Greg would say was right. He's like, Greg's like, Chris, make sure you service the wires 60 passes. Try not to go over 60. 62, 65. You're not making out the panty mirror. Sparkle wire is bad. Oh, it's just trimming the fuel. Fuel trim's too much. I put too much fuel trim in that cylinder. Go out another run. Same nut and chains. Took the fuel trim away. He's like, sparkle wire. I'm like, all right, let me check the impedance. Oh my God. Sparkle wire. He's like, I told you. Like, I could go on and on and on with the things he told me to do that I didn't. I had to learn the hard way. And some of being stubborn, some of like, there's no way. And he was right, man. And there's things he wanted me to do different with parts and things. He preferred this and prefer that. He's a big turbo guy. He's also a big radial guy. So I don't have a big tire tuner in my background. Helped me out with, a lot of previous libraries and data from big tire racing and big tire, guys you race with. So I don't have that in my corner either. But a friend he is, a knowledgeable guy he is. And Price, I even flew him out, and he taught me how to rebuild the motor when I first wrecked it up bad, that I had to do out on the road. And I went to Casey Max's shop and did it out in Kansas. And I flew him out. He helped me, taught me. But if I didn't break and have all the problems I had, I never would have learned how to thrash and work on the combo. And I like my businesses, like I got to know how to do everything there. I might not be the best or better than my guys at my work, but I at least know how to do it all. And I needed to learn and know how to function and facilitate the whole operation on in-framing that thing out there in the field if we had to and out on the road. So I learned how to do that. I had to do it multiple times. Through some buddies in Kiko and some other guys that helped me another time. But if I didn't have those problems, I never would have learned how to do it. So sucks. Learn the hard way, but you got to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, and I'm going to get into some more of the season stuff here, but I'd say by the second half of the season that you were definitely starting to figure shit out, because you were running more consistent, better time, stuff like that. But I want to talk to you. So last time I had you on the show was before the No Prep King season even started. So let's go from the beginning here. Let's talk about the draft. And did you have any expectations going into the No Prep Kings draft they had in Ohio before the first race?
So man, I pull into the gates up there, and Dave's out there, Kai's, and everybody's signing in, and I don't know the first thing about where we're going to pit, how we're going to pit, location of the pits. these guys have raced these tracks a couple times, so they got their own pit spots. Like, hey, I want to pit here. I like pit my spot, or So like my comfortability with knowing everything that goes on in the operations from tech to all that was not there. I was not comfortable at all. But like anything, man, I'm a sponge, and I soaked it up, figured it out, paid attention, listened, and I didn't know what to expect when it came to the draft at all. I don't think 100% anybody really knew exactly how it was going to operate, work, other than what we would have read. But it's when I got out there and I'm sitting in line with all those guys, I'm like, without watching every race and every season episode from the last couple of years to see how every average or below average racer did, I really didn't know where I sat, other than what I knew and my level of figuring things out. Like, I don't have any give up in me. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people probably say that, but I definitely don't. And I just knew that I've been fast on big tire, not the kind of big tire racing we're doing now, but I've been fast. I've done well, so I knew there was a 50-50 chance I could get picked up. So
Kai had not talked to you beforehand, or any of the captains had talked to you and say, hey, ask you any questions, like, hey, are you going to be able to make all season? That seemed like that was a common theme between all the captains, especially after a little while, was they kept asking people if you're going to be in every race.
So I was over there BSing with Kai, looking at the new car, and he did say to me, so what is your plans this year, man? How are you going to do this? You got somebody that runs your company? You work? What do you do? Who's going to run your shit? And like, you think you actually make all the season? So I didn't know I was being interviewed. You know what I mean? I didn't, or potentially interviewed. So I guess he kept in the back of his mind that, I'm going to, if Rankin's out there and all the good picks, he had his second or his third choices. And rightfully so. I was the last choice of his because, I did the worst out of anybody on the team next to, Bodie Jr. I don't know if it was me or him, but regardless, it doesn't really make a difference. I'm not counting straws or measuring things here. It's just I didn't do as good, and I wish I would have. I know he wishes we would have, or my team would have. But I was very appreciative that he pulled me on his team, and I think he knew that we work hard. He's told me all season long, bro, nobody works harder than you, man. And so I really appreciate that from him. And honestly, man, he's a smart guy. He taught me some stuff. He educated me on some things. He's definitely a gangster racer. And for people out there that watch the show that don't really know who does what, who wrenches, who thrashes on their own stuff, like, there's nights out there where he'd be thrashing, putting trainees in because the guys were moving slow or couldn't get something done or did something wrong, and he just get under and do it himself, and have them hand tools, So he gets in there, nitty gritty, popping heads off, putting head gaskets on. Like, the only way he got to be the best at where he's at is by doing it and learning it the same way, man. Just being good at every part of it, from the chassis to the motor, and having confidence in people and giving people a shot. And that's kind of what I did this year. And everybody on my crew did really well. And we just were slow picking the pace up. Kai joked me quite a few times, like, man, I'll go out and watch you. And every time I watch, something happens. Like, I'm not watching anymore. I'm like, don't watch. So then, we get traded, and he's like, man, I trade you, and then you start winning. I'm like, oh, no, I don't know, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to give me, and I don't think it's a bad omen or it was a bad, it might have been a bad choice, but there wasn't a whole lot left for him to pick from that would have been any better, honestly. So,
Yeah, when did you learn that the actual format? So I know, like, talking to Nate and you and a couple other future guys, Damon, before the draft, there was a point you guys didn't know if you guys were going to have to race futures or how that was all going to work. When you basically figured out, like, hey, I don't have to race futures, I'm going to be on somebody's team right in the big show right away. Did you get excited about that? When did you find that out? When you got to Ohio?
So I found that out obviously after we went through the draft on I guess it was Friday, and when we figured out that the points wouldn't count for that race, it'd be starting in Virginia. So then I knew it then, and I'm like, wow. So I'm committed. I already knew I was committed at that point in Ohio. Like, I knew that there might be a couple races I wouldn't make if I didn't need to, but once I was pulled on the team, man, my wife and I, we knew, she knew that my head was in it if we were it all drawn to somebody's team. We had to be committed, like we were going to be there. So
Yeah.
it was it wasn't nerve wracking, but it was nervous. There was worry because I didn't know what it was going to take to get my car where it needed to be. Like I had ideas and numbers that I thought would be run in ET from first round to second to third, and I was very close. And my expectations were high for me, and eventually I got to where my expectation was met toward the middle of the end, toward the pretty much the end of the season, of where we need to be with our car. But I didn't know if I'd be able to bring to the table as quick. I didn't know if I could bring it to the table as quick as he needed it to be for the team to be able to benefit from me. I didn't know. And I can only just cross my fingers at that point and hope that I had a little lady luck. And I found some faith while I was away. So I was hoping at that point that faith would even help, and little God and higher power above would help me. So, that was the tough part. Just making sure that I could bring to the table what he needed.
Right. I looked at the stats earlier, and I think I noticed that you had raced obviously in the first and the second race. You raced in the main event, and then not again until race 9, which I don't remember where exactly that was. But then you obviously raced like in pretty much every. I think you raced in 7. I think you were in 7 of
Invitationals.
7 invitationals. You finished 32nd in points, but I believe you had Outlaw Big Tire win. Was that Colorado?
Yeah, Bandamere.
Yeah, that was. I think that was like maybe race 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. Was that kind of your turning point, you think, of the season, that where you're like, hey, I know I lost in the first round, but I won Outlaw Big Tire. I went rounds, and now I'm making invitation every week. Like, was that like the turning point for you?
It was, man. It was because a lot of things happened. I learned how to rebuild the motor on my own with my buddies and without any like special help. I had a phenomenal time out there in Colorado with some of my old family that I hadn't seen in many, many years. The element of the track was just incredible, and it's terrible that place isn't going to be there anymore, because that was the whole element there was so, surreal. Like the whole atmosphere, the layout of the track. I loved everything about it. Before we even won or even made a lap down the track, I loved everything about it. And it was my last time that I actually had a failure to my car where Greg told me something was going to happen. I didn't listen. So that was the last straw of those. So that's why I think all the turning of events got better, is because from that point forward, if I had 60 passes on something, he said, don't do more than 60, whether it been rods, wires, whatever. I listened. And, but I did break a couple more times, but we went to 98 millimeters and the turbos really performed really well. And, once we got past Bandamere and Vegas, we got back in the lower altitudes.
Yeah.
So the car was making more boost when I got back home, and as soon as we got back from Vegas, next stop was Ohio Dragway 42. And I immediately blew a head gasket there, too much boost, because again, just like the blower cars or anything else, they make more boost with better DA. So does the turbos, obviously, and I use a dome command. And when I target a dome command, sometimes that number is not the same. Like, for example, it's not always 1-to-1. So if you're making 70 pounds of boost, you don't have 70 pound of dome. You might have 110 pound of dome to make 70 pounds of boost. Well, when I got back home and I'm running the 98s, we're back to Ohio and 2,000 feet of air, not 6 or 4 or 5 or 7, whatever that might have been. Right. It was like 4,000 in Vegas, which is drier, and it was like 8,000 whatever or better in Bandamere. When we got back, it was like under 2,000 in Dragway 42, and I blew a head gasket within the first good couple passes that I made. But that was another learning lesson there. I learned about fluid shearing. I learned about fluid shearing in the transmission before, but I was going off what the blower guys told me about servicing the fluid and how often they serviced it. And with turbo guys, you can't service it. You got to service it in half the interval of a blower guy. And I learned that out there because I swapped out a tranny thinking the tranny was going away with slippage, and it wasn't. It was fluid. So again, another lesson learned, but that wasn't a lesson where I was told, well, I ain't gonna lie. I think Greg might have told me 4 to 5 passes on that fluid, and I was like, nah. So I guess that might have been actually my last learning lesson there with fluid. Yeah, man. So it was a turning event. but I still had some breakage because when I got home, the 98s performed differently than what they did with the 88s back home. So I had to figure that out. And, that's why I'm so apprehensive with the hubless right now, because I know they make so much more power. And I got to baby step it up with the new changes that Billy Briggs is doing so I don't break it early season. I definitely don't want to do that. I'd rather come out strong than come out, breaking something and have to Band-Aid it through the first early half of the season.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to start that way. So individually, would you say you ended the season? Like, did you end the season on a good note? Like, did you end on a positive? Like, you got positivity coming into this year?
Yeah, man, I did. I mean, I learned some stuff in Phoenix. Like, we went out to Phoenix, and that was probably one of the most marginal tracks we went to. And I was just learning another traction control tuning method that Craig had taught me up front on the first half being crankshaft plot. And I always thought it was like a magic wand. And I did learn on small tire with my son out of Maple Grove, it wasn't a magic wand. It wouldn't just cut the balls off of a wheel speed problem. Your tune-up's got to be close. So I did learn that there, but I thought my tune-up was close enough on big tire in Phoenix, and I was wrong. But that track was a little tough, man. That left lane there was tricky. So I had to learn, though. What it did is taught me that surfaces can get worse than what I had ran in a couple other tracks throughout the season, and I had to figure out how to tend with that, which I'm now have got tune-ups for that. So nice. I did end up where I ended up happy. So
that's good. That's good, man. That's for sure. I know some people were not when they ended the season. So
I mean, look, I could be worse, but I'm satisfied. I was a pleasure. It was a blessing to be able to be a part and compete. And
let's talk a little bit more about. Yeah, no, you definitely were, Chris, for sure, man. Especially towards the end of the year. Let's talk a little bit more about the team part of the competition, because that's really what that whole format is really why you got your chance right away to do it this year. So before we get into the trade, because I've definitely got to talk about the trade that went down. But how was it? Like, how was the team competition or team side of it for you on Kai's team? Did you guys share data? Was it you guys really helpful to each other? Like, how was the whole atmosphere on Kai's team before you got traded?
So, I mean, it was great. Being a guy that's pretty humble, it's hard to go up to these guys and be like, hey, would you run that pass, or would you do, and would you this, would you that? I mean, I did occasionally, and Gates, Pat, even Junior when Bodie was running the early season, early couple races, and Kai would give me, they would say, like, if we were somewhere, like even in Idaho, I was like, man, I got a pass, I got a lick that I really think is going to work. And Gates like, whatever pass you made last night, you need to run the same tune-up. I'm like, well, this is about what it ran. He's like, that's what I just ran my last pass, and that's killer. So keep it right there. Like, that's money. And that was my plan. So I listened. Of course, I had some other problems that broke out there. I had a tang break off a spout spring, and it took out my oil pump and some other shit that happened. But I definitely shared data. They shared with me, and I told them what I ran, and I hope it helped them. But at the time, I wasn't really running as fast anywhere near where I needed to be with them consistently. Anyway, I was doing it all at the wrong times if I was. And it definitely helped. I mean, it definitely taught me things, because Kai told me, about rear gear roll that I never would have knew. And, Javi over there helped me with getting the fluids that I needed from Ryan's team. So not having a team to be within where I could share some information would have been more difficult. And we didn't have nobody else had a turbo combo. So it wasn't like I could share with them and they could share with me, other than maybe ET or 60 foots and things of that nature. But, they were all cool, man. They were gangsters. They could have been, like, they were as helpful as they could have been, and as kind. And Kai gave me, more than enough time to get my stuff figured out. And I even told him before Maple, like, look, dude, if you got to make it happen, like, you got to make a trade, something pops off where it makes sense. I'm like, I get it, dude. No hard feelings. So when he made the trade, he came and calls me.
Yeah, how'd that go down? I want to hear how that all went down.
So he hits me up, shoots me a text, and I'm like almost to Dragway 42 in a bore down rain, miserable ass drive, 40 some hours. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I get it, man. I'm like, he had to do what he had to do. I wasn't mad. And then he texted me like, "Look, dude, I don't want you to be mad, man. After you be mad," and he was really ethical about it, man. Like, stand up is all get. Like, you couldn't have been no more stand up, and I really appreciated the way he did it. And then he came over to me. He's like, "I was gonna be afraid to come over to you. I thought you were gonna beat me up." I'm like, nah, man. Like, I knew that he had to do what he had to do, and I was felt terrible that I held them back in the team up to that point, So, um, he did he treated me as fair as he could have treated me, man, and he didn't want to do it, but he knew that he had to make a change, and I think production probably needed him to make a change, for him to move forward and be able to flex like he deserved. So I didn't want to hold them back, and I'm glad that Damon performed really well and continued to perform very well. Maybe he should have kept Clay the last couple of races though. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been meaning to get him out here and ask him that. I mean, I did ask him that in person, but I want to ask him that on the show for sure. But because I want to say, were you guys in first place at the time when you got traded? Yeah. So did you ever imagine you were going to be traded for also $10,000 as well? Did you ever imagine that? That was how the season was going to.
I think some other people got traded for that.
They did. Yes, they definitely did.
But listen, I wanted to earn my way anyway. But I'm not much of a sports guy. But when you think of like bench warmers, you know what I mean. There's bench warmers in the athletic world from football. That sit the bench or baseball. They never play a game. Second, third string quarterbacks, whatever, never throw a ball. And they still wear a ring at the end of the season when the Patriots win or whoever wins the Super Bowl. So it would have been nice to be like, but if I didn't earn it, I would have earned it more toward the end. Clearly.
For sure.
But it's all right. But they didn't win anyway, so it didn't matter.
Right. No, they did not. No. Some might call that karma. No, I'm just kidding. I love Kai. But I'm glad it was I'm glad your situation with Kai ended like good. Like I'm glad you guys ended it on good terms. As far as that, because there's egos and there's everything involved in this. And there's a lot of money involved in this whole thing, as you know. So the fact that you guys were in first place and got traded, I mean, that's big on you. It shows your character too, Chris, in this whole thing. So
I appreciate it. Yeah.
What was, as far as the team concept and how it all was did you enjoy it overall? And would you like it? Like, would you be cool if it was like that again this year?
Yeah, man. Like I wasn't opposed. I don't really. So obviously, those guys have raced seasons before individual, so they know how it is. I've raced team stuff with the show before, so I know how that is. Obviously, with Fast in America, so I'm really familiar with sharing data and having teams and knowing what it's like. So I know team members can hold you back. And you got to carry people on your back sometimes. Been there, and I know how individually it's only your accountability. So I don't care either way. Like obviously next season, I'm all about the individual if that's the way it's going to be, and I'm going to do my best to be the best that I can. If it's teams, I'll do my best for whatever team I'm on, and hopefully, I'll be carrying people on my back and not the other way around this season. So
right.
Cool. But that's how I feel about it, man.
Let's talk about this upcoming season a little bit. I know we don't have a schedule to talk about. We don't have rules to talk about. None of that. But how I know for all your drivers and stuff like that, a lot of you guys were like need sponsorship. How is the sponsorship search going for you? And are you bringing anybody new on? Are you looking for more people?
So I mean, I got some prospective people in mind. It is definitely tough. You feel like you missed the boat when you get past the end of the old year and into the new year. But really, when it comes to, I guess, marketing and networking and budgets, when it comes to things that people think they can make money with, they're going to make exceptions with time. And I think we haven't missed the boat yet. I got Jeff Lambert with Race Sponsorships helping me. He's a great guy. He also has Greasy's Garage. He does hand cleaners and all those other soaps and stuff through his company. And he's trained me in the past with his classes. Now he's helping me, and he's willing to help others actually within MPK if they want his help. He's going to open his arms to something that he normally didn't do. he has an amazing way of selling himself, or selling us. Like, I think I'm a good salesman. I sell work for my company. But when I talk to him and he's like, Chris, you listen to anything I taught in my class? I'm like, God, I'm like, man, I'm terrible, aren't I? He really is educational, and it isn't always something you can learn just in a couple of weekends and a couple of weeks. You know, you have to change your character, learn how to do things, to say things, and be perceived. And I can sometimes come off as brash, and so can he. But sometimes it's needed. And so he's helped me. I got also Matt Ebal with TMK Graphics by TMK. He's helping out with doing all my design work. So, hopefully between these guys and myself, they can help me, and they'll help others too. Get this badass HFR car that was built last year off to a better program next year, because I spent a lot of money, and I watched one of Reaper's podcasts. His money that he spent's about spot on, and it's a tough rodeo. Robin Roberts told me last year, he's like, you're gonna spend about X amount of dollars, and I'm like, all right. And he was right, man. Like, they have a great program, and they have a very fast hot rods. So clearly he knows.
Yeah.
And I definitely need the support for next season. It's going to be tough. Like, I'm willing to try and do it again, but I need to get some support. But honestly, man, we reciprocate really well, and we have a car that can, I think, show and shine next year. So, and being it's only 99-inch car, man, it's a car that nobody, honestly, when I built the car, took serious. Like, ain't no way this car is going to go fast enough. It's going to work. And Henry Fravo over there at HFR is just he's like a magic wand, man. Like, these guys go to a lot of other builders like Jolair Jeffers and Wizard. They're all great builders too, I'm sure. But up in the Northeast, like HFR, man, they are the top dogs up here. I mean, they are incredible. They don't have like just huge facility, but you got the owner, doing a lot of work on the car, and
Nice.
he's smart. So he built a great car. He's doing a couple things for it this season. They're going to help it go faster next year. I wish that I could have been a better advocate for him, going out there winning everything, showing everybody how badass his car is, because just about every car he builds up here for somebody is like always in the winner's circle. So yeah, man. So hopefully I can get some good help and continue to race next season and be better, and be a good reciprocator of whoever supports us and have the partnership with us, because we love everybody all the same, and we appreciate anything that's done for us. And, so I just hope we can get some good relationships brought up before the season gets started.
Yeah. And speaking of support, where can people follow you on all your social medias?
So Chris Rankin Racing on Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube the same. Chris Rankin Racing on YouTube. My YouTube following is small. I definitely need to boost it up, guys. So if you guys haven't been on my YouTube, I got some silly videos, some videos that I've done. I've been the best at. I got some other ones professionally done from help from Ignition Source and Brad Maderi over there. I would love you guys to like, share, and follow and subscribe to our YouTube if you haven't already. We will definitely be trying to make some better content every week here moving forward into the season. When the season comes to air, we're going to be making content talking about every weekend. And we have another little shop too, Northeast Unlimited. You can check us out there on Facebook and Instagram. My own personal sponsors that come from me, by the way, are C2 Concrete and C2 Crane and Trees. So you guys can check us out there on our YouTube and our Insta and Facebook. We appreciate that. And you start sponsorship goes, you'll tell me, man. Like, if I get to plug some guys, let me know. I'll plug away. We do it later, whenever it works for you.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. We'll do something.
Yeah.
I want to, before we get into the questions, I had a couple things I want to talk to you about. Mega Cash Days. So we saw you at Mega Cash Days on TV earlier this year. I know going into the Mega Cash Days, when I saw who was going to be on it, knowing who you are and what you've done on small tires, I was like, Rankin has a good chance of winning this one, in my opinion. You finished with the top 12. You had 3 wins. How was your experience overall, and did it go how you thought it was going to go?
So, man, I went out there with my B car. So it was my small tire car that I went out there with. Entry level. It's the car that I built for small tire, and Cade, my son, won quite a bit of money in racing while his truck was being built. I think I would have done a little better had I had the OG Relic, but I crashed it the week before at a back of a track race in Tennessee. I hit the wall in the finals on big tire, and I could have took it. It was beat to hell. I mean, I would have had to duct tape it up. It would have looked like some of these guys' cars from this past year after the end of the season. But I didn't want to do that. I knew I had another car that could be competitive. And I didn't think that the surface was going to get as fast as it did. And being that it did, I came out with the wrong gun. My son's truck is the same power plant as my OG car. So it would have done better had I've been the first one out for him to collect some data. It's huge. Data sharing is huge to be able to have a very comparable car that you're sharing data from. I'm not talking about stealing one tune-up from another and actually plugging it into another car, but having the power management data where you can just emulate it from one tune-up to another car. And not having the relic there for him and me was tough because the two cars were a little bit different between turbo size and displacement engines. So we could have done better. And honestly, we would have changed the suspension deal on the car had we had more time. We went out with the cars on anti-squat and separation. And I was going to make the change going out there, and I didn't. And then when I got out there and I seen what these guys were doing on squat, and I was like, man, I should have went back to it. I just was like kicking myself in the butt for so many reasons and not having enough time, enough data. But there's never enough time in the world. When you're racing, you're going to different events throughout the summer and seasons. Sometimes there's not enough time to test different changes. And so it's just my son, he's a gangster driver. I think he's beat me. Him and I raced 3 out of 3 times. He's beat me 3 out of 3 times. No, I won one, but only he broke. So he cracked the cylinder. He was already out on me a car and a half. This was up in Syracuse, New York, at a 3-side event. He was out on me. Yeah, me beat. I mean, I was keyboarding for both cars now, but I would never give him any less. I would want him to do the best.
Right,
so I got him, but I only got him because his car popped, shut off, and sucked up coolant. But yeah, man, he's a great kid, and he's in wrestling right now, so he hasn't been doing a lot of racing. So unfortunately, he hasn't been a whole lot of part of small tire anywhere all summer. He's missed almost all summer because traveling with us, and then all winter being in wrestling.
Yeah, how was that? How was that experience for him going out to the West Coast with you for that time period, and doing mega caches? Because I know you've raced with him. You guys have raced together, obviously, but I don't think on that big of a stage, I don't think he's ever raced.
Yeah, no,
like that, has he?
He didn't. He's calm and collect, man. He's laid back like his mom. So I'm high strung, fast talking, obnoxious. He's not. So he liked it a lot, and he did well. He would have did every race that I think he lost by a bumper.
Yeah, it was close. Yeah,
he's a hell of a driver, man. And that I tell you, the junior dragster racing is really, really important for a lot of kids to learn. And my little boy Cole, we sold the junior, so he's not going to learn in that, unfortunately. But we're going to get him out early here. We have a car being built for him. We're going to work on it the next year or two. So I'm going to teach him early, maybe in something else. Maybe I'll borrow a buddy's junior to let him make some hits on in a weekend or two at a track, cutting a tree down, because cutting a tree down is important. Not to mention, though, these kids play video games all the time, and I don't play these games like they play with these drag racing games. And they simulate drag racing pretty damn close. So they got pretty good at. They make fun of me because how slow I am in three. I can be slow, compared to them. They're going 10 bulb and 20 bulb, and I'm like 50, 60, or 70. I mean, they're like incredible. But yeah, man. So yeah, he had a great time. I wish he would have been able to run with us some more this year on some small tire chasing when we were doing MPK, but he was in training and focus, and he couldn't be there, unfortunately.
Yeah, he'll have time. He'll have time for all that stuff.
Yeah, well, right now it's snow up here, man. We want to just test. We want to test. We got no time, like nowhere to go. Let's go way south. It's like,
Yeah. Do you have any speaking of small tires and staying on that subject? Do you have any big small tire events that you're going to plan on doing this year? That doesn't. I mean, we don't have a No Prep King schedule, but maybe before No Prep King starts.
Well, they were talking about the Race Palooza thing that was going to be kicking off. I'm not sure if that's still going to happen or not. We'd love to be, continue to be a part of the Palooza race if that's going to happen. I don't know what other big events are happening. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. There's a small tire race everywhere you turn anymore. There was a race here in March that was going to be a good one, I think, local, but that's the weekend Caden is going to be wrestling for states. So that's going to be, I'm going to miss that one. So that's his last weekend, really. So it's if he makes it to states, but we plan on making it to states. So I plan on not making that event, unfortunately.
Right. Hey, I wanted to ask you now. So we'll go way off subject here, because I was a college athlete, and I got little kids now. I played football, but my little sons are wrestling. They're like 4K in first grade. They started wrestling. Is Caden? Is he going to wrestle in college?
So we're actually looking at school stuff now. I mean, he's D2 capable, I believe, right now. Like he's not.
Nice.
His attitude, his performance and level has changed significantly this year from last year. Plus, he's been in the gym 6 days a week, gaining muscle and getting swole. At least he was up to season started, which he didn't want to listen to me last year. He listened this year, and his attitude changed as far as heart and his will. So his heart and his will here. Sorry. So he has got it now to where he can go really far. If he can get some sort of scholarship to be able to get him into college, that would accept him to where it would make sense, I'm totally willing. And we haven't been looking into those. We were looking more into tech, like WyoTechs, and him maybe doing like business management remote or through Zoom, or online, and doing like 2 colleges at once. But we don't know yet. Like things are still up in the air. Like I think things are ready to pop off here in the next few weeks where some opportunities.
It's about that time. Yeah.
So
that's good, man. I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like he's a really smart kid. I really honestly want him to, as soon as he gets out of school, I want to get him into Holly Fuel Tech School, HP Tuners. He's a really smart kid. He's really good at power managing himself. He helps me out here when we sit down and go over tune-ups. And I think that he could do better than I do. And I want him. We have a little chassis dyno we put in the shop so he can practice some stuff down there. So yeah, I want him to get into the tuning aspect of drag racing at the end of the game. That would be preferred for me.
Cool. That'd be awesome. If you want, Chris, we'll take some questions. If you have a question for Chris, put it in the chat box. He should be able to see him. There's been a lot of, I think they want both me and you to talk about the schedule. It doesn't exist. Chris, I got another question for you. If you look back at the season, what was probably your most memorable? Oh, and he's gone. And he's gone. Where'd he go? Did he kick himself out? Hopefully he comes back in. Well, there we go. Maybe not. Let's see here. Sorry, trying to get Chris back in here to answer some of your questions. If you have some questions, post it in the chat box, please. We'll get Chris back in here to answer a couple questions. Cricket phone, yeah. I think he definitely hit the wrong button. Now I can't get him back in here. I'm going to read. Are there any questions? Oop, I'm going to do that. We are trying to get Chris back in here. I see some comments. No, I don't have a schedule. Dave Comstock probably has a schedule. So if you go to Dave's, go to Daddy Dave on Facebook and send him a private message and ask him if he can give you the schedule, because he has it, I believe. Mike Firebird, are you going to the Maple Grove Icebreaker race in February? I don't know anything about that. Is that? I know there's like some ice races up here in Wisconsin in the wintertime that I wanted to go to, but I thought that was up north somewhere. Chris Michael says the first race is March 32nd in Hawaii. Here we go. Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, man.
Hey, man.
I was actually texting you to let you know it says I was in the waiting room there.
Yeah, I was just answering
you have
some
to read
questions.
the chats, man. I hit the chats and it just.
I figured it's hard on your phone. Yeah. MCG. Someone wants to know what your favorite track is to race. What was your favorite track this year? I'm sure there were some tracks you never raced at before.
So my favorite track, so my fastest track that I enjoyed the most in season of MPK was Steel, because it was the fastest track that I personal best. At the time, personal best my car there. And obviously I like Bandimere because it was an awesome track. That was probably my most fun experience for the year because of the win and because of the atmosphere. The whole place there was just incredible. Vegas was awesome, being able to race the four-way, even though we didn't race the four-way, but that was incredible. But honestly, MIR was the World Cup was really a bucket list race for me. So that was probably I've raced there many times. It's local to me. It's only 2.5 hours, but it was a bucket list race for me just to be a part of that deal.
Yeah, shit. That's my fault. I didn't even bring that up. I should introduce you as the world record holder, Chris Rankin. Talk about that, man. Going to that and running really well there, obviously.
Yeah, man. So obviously it was just me, Jim Howe, and Odom there, and I did a little research when I was there. After I got there, really pay more attention to where qualifying round 1 to qualifying round 4 and 5, where the qualifying runs were versus who actually ended up making the field after making their blistering, pump their chest out qualifying pass. And I was like, some people didn't even make the field or even go far, even go past round 1. So I knew that I had to come up with a game plan there, man, honestly. And I did definitely want to go 5s. I could have actually went 5s off the trailer my very first pass. I think I won a 6.0 at like 178. But you know what I did? And I think Jim Howe had done this a couple times in his passes. I got out to the 8th mile and I freaking threw the chute. And I'm like, what did I do? Just out of sheer
repetition, yeah.
Yeah, man. I threw the
unconsciously did it, yeah.
I'm like, I let off the gas and threw the chute. I could have just let off the gas and coasted to a low 590 that pass. And by ET, it showed, my 8th mile was as fast or if not faster than my 590 pass. So disappointing as that was, man, it was what it was. But I didn't really care at that point. It would have been the first 590 pass out of any car the whole weekend would have been that lick the first day. But I had just an idea that I needed to be able to go the distance. And I figured if I could, qualify and seed somewhere in the middle, then I would race people in the middle. And hopefully the faster guys would break or go out before they got to the later rounds of eliminations. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have to beat the car up because honestly, it was planned to be my last race of the season. And then Texas got rained out. So production had to move Texas to 2 weekends later when it fit in Texas or fit back in Texas' schedule. So I then had to go to MIR. I didn't have to, but it was like it's only 2.5 hours from my house. So it just made sense. So we went there. We pretty much, we changed gear ratio. That was pretty much it. And we did put a 36 on the car. I had actually Henry from HFR come over to the house. We replotted the car and we're like, you know what, man, let's just leave the 34.5 one so you don't chase and play games. My tuner agreed. We left 34.5 down on there on the car. Went out there with that and went 590s, broke a world record. So the fastest I did have the world record with my OG car, and I went like 650 with it. And then this Puerto Rican car with a 2JZ went like 6.1. So I know there's not a lot of those cars out there, but there is. It means something to me. I mean, I've owned one since I was 15, and there's quite a few cars out there that drag races. Not as many as the Fox Bodies and the '69 Camaros you see. So it was cool, man, to be able to go that fast and be able to carry that record. And talking to Mark Benson Jr., who won it, went 560s at like 252. He's got a very similar combination to Lutz and old cast block, aluminum block, cast aluminum block, big block deal. And we could have went 70s. I had to tune up in the car to do it, but I just kept it safe. And we ended up having problems there. We had injector failure, burn a piston, had a throttle body come apart, lost bolts, took a piston out. So we had to pull ahead 2 different times throughout the whole weekend and drop a slug in once. And the last run in my round 2, I had I think it was who was it? Number 2 qualifier. And we were out on them. I was out on the 1,000, 1,200 foot. And we had a crack in number 1 piston from the bad injector, had 3 cracks in the top of right by the valve relief. And I just knew that it could let go. And we put a new injector in, but we didn't know what it would do. And So I lifted at 1,200 foot and he clipped me. I'm like, ah. So everybody's like, what are you doing? Like, why did you lift? And I didn't hear him. I didn't see him. And I just was like, I got this. And I lifted. So I lost. But let me tell you what would have happened. If I did not do that, I would not have had time to pull ahead, swap a piston out for round 3. I would have ran the car and I would have kicked out number 1 rod, never made it with that motor to Texas. It would have been miserable because we got to Texas. First thing we did after the rain in the morning was pull the jug, pull the pan, and I pulled my Adam Frog, my crew chief, pulled the bearing off, and the bearing was beat to smithereens from the detonation, from the injector pass where it went bad, and then our run that we made with it afterwards. So it was just, I was lucky. And much as I didn't want to let off the race and lose the race, I did, but it saved the motor. So we didn't go 570s, and but we lived to see another day.
Hell yeah, and you got the record, buddy. So congratulations on that, man.
Appreciate it.
So Chris, I don't want to keep you all night, but I do want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, buddy. You've been nice to me every time I come talk to you at the races. Been supportive of me. Anything I can ever do for you when it comes to social media or anything online, please let me know, man.
Appreciate it.
Again, thank you for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for coming on to watch.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You've been a great part.
And I wish you the best of luck, sir, and I will see you at the first race, whenever that is.
Got it, man.
All right. Have a good night, sir.
You too, buddy.
Bye.